Hello everyone, welcome to Foreigner Farming in the Philippines. So I'm wandering around down here in the fields, not really looking for anything to do. I'm just like doing a little inspection here. And this is the squash here in field 2. We got a pretty decent germination and it's coming up well. I'm pretty happy with this right here. So we'll fertilize this in about 3 weeks. Once I see the first little runners starting to come out from these plants, then I'll fertilize them. And I would anticipate that'll be in about 3 weeks. Still haven't planted the rest of field 3 here because we just ran out of seeds. And it's a double-edged sword, I guess you could say. We can't find any seeds, and if we did find some seeds, we couldn't afford to buy them anyway. So we're just going to have to wait and be patient. We need a good amount of seeds to plant the rest of this field. Yes, love? All right. Marcel has an errand to run in town. She's letting me know she's leaving, so I've got to head back up shortly and take care of the little man. So we've got to decide what we're going to do with the plateau. Replant, clear it, replant, but exactly when that's going to happen, I don't know. The squash here is up and doing fairly well. It's looking like we'll get 1 or 2 more harvests out of this plateau area before we just have to call it a day up here. I'm of the opinion now that we're going to have to do something better than what we did for weed control. And the way this is right now, I don't think plastic is a viable option. There's just too much, too many of those little stumps from the trees that we hacked down are still present, and we don't really have it would take a tractor-sized rototiller to come through and get rid of those little stumps. Nothing small would do it. The only other option is to mow all this and come in through with a crew with bars and just dig them all up by hand, and that's I don't even want to have to think about that. But we've got to do something, because I mean, it's taken several months and the weeds were slow to come, but they're here and they've taken over. So I've got to get something figured out here. This is a large area and it's productive. I mean, you guys have seen the squash we've taken out of here. But if there were no weeds, this would continue to produce squash for another several months. But because of the weeds, well, the production's pretty much stopped. We'll get another harvest or 2, but it's really a chore trying to find it, because the weeds are trying to find the squash because the weeds are so tall. And it's, you can't see all those little tripping hazards because of the weeds. I don't know, I guess what I'm trying to talk myself into is really properly clearing this and putting plastic down and just doing it right. But monetarily, that's going to be a challenge. we'll get something figured out. We'll be able to use, I'm pretty sure, the income generated from fields 2, 4, and 5, because they're all coming on, and we'll be harvesting the squash from these fields in about 60 days. We'll begin harvesting. So maybe we'll turn some of that back into more clearing and more planting. We still never did plant those rows there on the end. Like I said, we ran out of seed. But these squash are looking really good. We went back through and staked down. Look, there wasn't a lot of soil to work with here, and that's why the plastic was blowing around. Tatai came back through and used little stakes to hold this plastic down. So that's working well. And I think we've, at least in the fields anyway, we've solved the weed problem with the plastic. We've got a lot of squash growing here. You know, this is all a learning process. And these squash here are not digging the weed problem. It just boils down to we've got to control the weeds, and the only way that I can think to do it effectively is with plastic. Now here's another example of using the glycophosphate. So Tatai came through and sprayed pretty much all this area here. As you can see, it's made this grass in here kind of sick, but it's still there. It's confounding. But as you can see, there's still squash in here that needs to be harvested. That's not from this field. That's stuff that's expanding out from the other side here. One of the reasons I wanted to come down here was to check and see if any of these new plants have started to set any fruit. See lots of blooms. Don't really see any squash yet. I think we'll have much less of a weed problem in here because we've pretty aggressively gone after it. I hoed all these. I used the hoe on these mounds here, the rows, to the same effect as if this did have plastic on it. So all the weeds right around the plants are down, and we sprayed what we could in here in the middles to keep it down. So we're much farther ahead in this side of field 6 here, just because it's apparent that we've got to be more aggressive on the weeds. I'm still looking around for fruit. I don't see any. Lots of runners. It's moving. Lots of blooms. But no fruit yet. So I would anticipate we're a couple months away from harvesting here. The squash planted around the banana trees, doing great. We took up the We took up the weed control in here a notch, and the squash seems to be winning now for the most part. There's still some areas where the weeds are, you know, fighting back, but we've made big strides for weed control in and amongst these bananas. And hopefully we can at least get one harvest out of these before the weeds outrun us. Most of this area right in here, for some reason, the squash didn't come up. It didn't grow. Maybe it's too wet. I don't know. But basically from right there where Old Swimmer's standing, all the way back here to right here where this next plant is, really nothing came up. I don't know why. It just didn't. Maybe it's just too wet. But I'm pleased with what's going on in the fields, and I think we've got it whipped here with the weed problem with this plastic. I think we've got it whipped. So we'll get a firm for sure amount of time from these fields on how long these plants will produce. There's some fighting going on over there. And it's my opinion right now that these squash plants will produce squash for 6-7 months. And each one of these fields, this field would be a couple 100 kilos a week. And so would this one. And so would those. So from these fields, I'm anticipating 500 kilos a week from all these fields here. And then the plateau, we've got to get that figured out. We've got to get it figured out how to win against the weeds. And I think plastic is the only way we're going to do it. And that's going to be pricey. It's going to require quite a bit of prep and quite a bit of pesos for the plastic. That's definitely going to be down the road. That's my little tour. So much I don't get to here. Look, Raymond was nice enough to send me those seeds. And I keep thinking I'll get down here and get this old original raised bed cleared out and planted. This is where I want to plant those onions. It's even fallen down now, that original bamboo fence. This is the area I want to plant the onions, and so sooner or later I'll get to it and I'll get down here and get to planting. So we can have something other than the red onions that are so common here. Not that I dislike red onions, I would just like some nice, big, fat, yellow and white onions. That's really my next project. The fields are kind of on autopilot for a while, and the plateau is not something that I can tackle by myself. But this little area right here, yeah, I can work this in with the crayfish and taking care of the animals. So that's my next project here. Thank you, everyone. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe.